Q&A with the LUKSO tech team. My name is Bianca. I'm head of developer relations at LUKSO. Okay, we have a break apparently. I'm getting notified that we have a small break. It seems that we're having some technical issues.
I think we're live.
I think so too.
Yep, we're live.
All right. Second time is the lucky time. So hi, everyone. Welcome to the first Q&A with the LUKSO tech team. My name is Bianca. I'm head of developer relations at LUKSO, and I'll be your host for today. Thank you so much to our guests for joining, and also for you for joining us on YouTube. We organized this session for our hackers to have the opportunity to ask any questions. We hope that you liked the videos that we released this week. So this is your chance to have your answers, with your questions answered by our amazing tech team. A bit of housekeeping before we start. This session is recorded, and also you can find it on the LUKSO YouTube. So in case you want to revisit any particular sections of these sessions, or if you want to watch it again, you can find it on the LUKSO YouTube. Maybe to give people some time to write their questions in the chat, let's start with some introductions. Magali, do you want to go first?
Sure. So let's see if my mic handle it. You can let me know if I'm not loud enough. So welcome everybody. So on my side, I did a workshop on the transaction relay service, and yeah, happy to be here to answer all your questions.
Nice. Maybe I can go next. Can you hear me? Is it good? Yeah, cool. So hello, everyone. My name is Yaman. I'm a smart contract engineer. I mainly work on the standardization and then creating the smart contract implementation of the standard. And for the hackathon, I presented two workshops, one related to the LSP17 extension. So how you add LSP17 extension to your profile to extend its functionality. And another workshop regarding universal receiver and how you can get notified on different transactions on your universal profile, and how you can add reactivity and react on different actions such as receiving token, receiving a follower, etc. So if you have any question, I'm happy to answer in this session. And I'll pass it to Jean.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Jean. I'm the lead smart contract engineer, and I worked on the workshop for creating an LSP8 collection. So, yeah, if you have any question around how to build your project around the Solidity code or the integration with the different LSPs together, yeah, feel free to ask. I will be happy to help. And yeah, I think that's it.
All right. Thank you all. We're still waiting for questions to come on YouTube, but we have some questions from our Discord in the meantime for you guys to answer. So Jean, in your video, you recommended a few ways to create an NFT collection. Which one is your favorite one and why?
Yeah, my favorite one is the last one, an LSP8 collection of LSP7, because I did the proof of concept, was playing around with creating these different digital stickers, and I think it's a very fun, interesting use case to play around with, but I think it's quite applicable to the real life. Like if you, like for instance, everyone kind of has a bit of a collector mindset. Like people, like people collect things like stamps, coins, trading cards, and in the real life it works very similarly. Like you have things like a specific coin from a specific date that was minted at a certain number, or you have like I don't know, like a specific watch from, let's say, a specific series that was created at a limited series. And I think yeah, that was my favorite. The example 5, I think it was, yeah, the last one, because I think it's really applicable to how you do things in real life when you build products. So yeah, that was definitely my favorite one.
Nice, thank you, Jean. Looking forward to different projects in our hackathon integrating it. We have a question in the chat. I think this one is for Yaman. So what happens when you extend LSP17, a function that already exists on the universal profile contract? Is it overwritten? If you want to add functionality, can I call the original UP function from the extension?
Okay, so I'm seeing the question, I'm reading it again. So the idea is that the universal profile have basic functionality. So we can probably name the function. So there is execute batch, set data batch, universal receiver, and the other ownership function. So these functions are fixed, meaning that if you call the function with this specific function selector, it will always go to them. And these are not like technically considered as features. They are like the base layer of the universal profile. Other features can be added as extension, such as like receiving token. You can have a specific callback with ERC 721 and ERC 1155. They need a specific callback, a specific function in order to receive the safe transfer. So you can add this specific functionality that refer to a specific standard. And then you can replace this extension. So for instance, first time you added this extension, you disallowed receiving ERC 721 token. Later you can change it, but in terms of like the main functionality in the universal profile that allow you to set data, to execute, to transfer the ownership, these stuff cannot be overwritten. It's just that you can add extra functionality to the universal profile via the extension. And then you can allow these extension to re-enter through the universal profile and like do certain execution, but that does not mean that you can override the specific functionality that a universal profile has. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you, Yaman. Let's see the feedback in the chat. In the meantime, there's a question from Magali. So Magali, for the relayer, what business models do you expect people to create for the relayer?
So for the business model, I expect something a bit like what we have now with our mobile subscription. So like a monthly subscription where people pay a certain amount and then they get a certain gas.
We can't hear you very well.
So can you hear me better if I speak like this?
Not really.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so I expect something a bit like a mobile subscription. Like nowadays, we pay for a gigabyte a month, and for the relayer, it will be the same thing, paying for a certain amount of gas a month.
Still, the audio is pretty bad.
Probably, Magali, you can write it and we can spread the message. That would be great.
In the meantime, if anyone else wants to share their favorite ways people can build relayers, feel free to do so.
I actually received a message on Discord, and it says, "Does the universal receiver delegate needs to have ERC725X in order to perform some logic?" So how this is structured is that, for instance, let's take the example of a token contract. Whenever you call this token contract as a user, this token contract will trigger some hooks, and these hooks will call the sender and the recipient. So for instance, let's just take the example of a recipient. The token contract is informing you about the receiving of a token. Your universal receiver will forward the call to the universal receiver delegate, which will react on it. So how the universal receiver delegate will react on it is completely up to you. So you can have a logic inside the universal receiver delegate that says, is just check an internal mapping to see if this token is whitelisted or not. You can have another logic that rely on an external registry that reads whether the token is allowed or not. You can have a logic where the universal receiver delegate interact with another contract. It could be through a generic execution like ERC725X, or a specific execution, meaning that the universal receiver delegate just called this specific contract. So how you design the universal receiver delegate is up to you. And the universal profile is just structured that if you want, you can set a contract to react on the universal receiver calls to your profile. How you do the universal receiver delegate is absolutely up to you.
Nice. Thank you, Yaman. In the meantime, we have the second part for the question from before. So the same person is asking, okay, then how can I extend the supported interfaces, for example? If the original universal profile contract supports ABC interfaces, how can I extend it to support a new interface? Let's call it D.
That's a good question, actually. So how we did it is that first, let's say when you call a specific function on the universal profile, and this function selector is existing, it will just go to the native function. So it will not go to the extension. Even if you set an extension for the, let's say, universal receiver selector, always the call will go to the native function. It will never go to the fallback. But how we did it with supports interface, because we see value in having the universal profile disclose that it support other interface. We did it in a way that first, the support interface of the universal profile support a specific interface ID. So if you go to the docs.lukso.tech and you go to the section of the LSP0 ERC725 account, we listed the interface ID supported within the contract. So you have, for example, ERC725X, Y, LSP1, LSP20, etc. What we did is that first, when you call this function, it will check these interface IDs. If it will check if the interface ID given as a parameter will match with one of these already set interface ID. If not, then it will go to the extension, which is related to the function selector of supports interface. So as you saw in my workshop, I took the selector of the supports interface function and I set an extension for this one. In this way, the supports interface function, after like checking all the interface ID hard-coded, if the parameter is not between these interface ID, it will go to the extension and check if the interface ID is supported or not. So this is not about overriding the functionality, but here we're also extending the functionality of supports interface, because as we said, like if you support a new function, you need to disclose to other websites that you support the interface ID for this standard. So yeah, how we do this is how we do it. And if you have any other question, I'm ready to answer it.
Nice. There's actually another question from our Discord. Can you please explain LSP1 token hooks? Wants to take this one.
Sure. So the LSP1 token hooks. So the LSP1 is just a standard that defines a universal receiver function. How you implement this function is up to you. In the context of universal profile, it is implemented in a way that when it receives a call, the universal receiver function, it will emit the event, obviously, the universal receiver event, which websites and interface can listen to. And the second part, which is the reactivity part, is that forwarding the call to different contracts. So you have the main contract called universal receiver delegate, and you have a contract called mapped universal receiver delegate. These are contracts that you can optionally set. You can decide to not set any universal receiver delegate, and just when the universal receiver function is called, it will just emit an event. But if you want reactivity, you can add this contract in your storage, and we have guides for it, and I did it in my workshop. And you specify a certain logic in this universal receiver delegate. So now how protocol should leverage it is a different side of it. So we build the LSP7 and LSP8 in a way that when a specific action happens, which is a token transfer, let's say, you're decreasing your balance as a sender and increasing the balance of the recipient. We don't just settle with that. We call the universal receiver function. So we inform via these hooks the recipient and the sender. So here it's the responsibility of the protocol or like the token contract or whatever contract to inform you using the universal receiver function. So it's about you having the ability to react and being notified, and it's the responsibility of the other protocol or token contract or whatever to notify you.
Thank you so much, Yaman. Before moving forward with the questions from the chat, I want to read Magali's answer for the business models for the relayer. So Magali was explaining it similar to how mobile phone subscriptions work. So basically, you have a data plan. For example, you're allowed to have 100 gigabytes of data per month. And the same logic would apply to relay services. So you would have a plan, but in this case, the plan would be for gas quota per month. Now going back to our questions, are there any planned updates for the universal profiles that developers should be aware of for future integration? We don't have Steven, unfortunately, but maybe we can still offer some insights, or if not, we can take it in the Discord.
Well, if you can hear me, maybe not. Yes. Then I think the idea is not to have any upgrade in the future with Universal Profile once we are launched on mainnet. But this might change in the future. But we try to have just one version and to not be compatible with previous version. But this can be adaptable, from my understanding. We can back up this with a Steven answer in the following days.
Yeah, and I can probably add here. So the idea is that your universal profile is your main identity on chain. So this is where you build reputation, you own your tokens, you set some data. So this is an address, or like this is the address of the contract that should not change. So obviously, we aim that the universal profile should not change. But like in terms of having a universal receiver delegate, this can obviously be changed because you can just swap it. And because it's not important, no one should care about the address of your universal receiver delegate. Everyone should care about the address of your universal profile. So if you change the address of the owner, let's say a key manager, you replace it with a new version of the key manager, that should be okay, because no one should rely 100% on these addresses. They should just care about the address of the universal profile, especially that we have a way of interacting directly with the universal profile, regardless of what the owner is.
Thank you both. Our next question, it's about storage. So for LUKSO, what's the preferred way of storing images? Things like banners, profile pictures, etc. Is it IPFS or database?
For now, the way we store images is on IPFS. So that would be the preferred way. And these are tools that is ER75 Inspect.
We can't hear you again, Magali.
And now? Still not?
I think you're breaking sometimes. The volume goes up and down.
So I would say it's IPFS, and then maybe someone can explain more.
Yeah, I can jump in. So basically, Maggie was saying preferred way right now is IPFS because it's mainly what is used right now with Universal Profile.cloud to display the images, and very likely all the other protocols and all the other libraries are using IPFS to upload and download the images. But you could technically put the images anywhere. You will have to construct the URLs with the link to the images and the URLs with the link where you are storing the image. But yeah, it's much preferred IPFS, also because it's more closely related to yeah, to how all the tools and all the product we have and the application we have are using. Like for instance, like if you are debugging with a ER75 Inspect, like you will get the images from IPFS by default. That's where it fetches everything from.
Thank you both. Our next question is about devices. So can LUKSO universal profiles be managed across different devices?
I can jump in here. So the key manager allow different controllers to control the universal profile. So what you can have is a controller on a specific laptop and another controller, which could be a ledger, or like ideally when we have the mobile application, you can have another controller on your mobile phone and you can spread permissions between those devices. So you can say the device allowed to transfer my tokens is my phone, not my laptop, and vice versa. So yes, you can control your universal profile with different devices.
Yeah, I think also the best way to put it with controlling the UP from multiple devices is really to think of blockchain private keys the same way as it works with like the SSH key on GitHub. So like with blockchain, right now, everyone is dealing with like this private key. Like you have it on the ledger, you have a mnemonic. But yeah, because we're doing hackathon, everyone here is probably familiar with GitHub. You know, when you want to verify your account or you want to set to FA, you basically create an SSH. You create an SSH key on your laptop, on your desktop, and then you upload it onto your GitHub account. You go to your settings, and that's how it basically GitHub verify that it's you. And the same principle works. You can have your GitHub, your GitHub and your Git commit linked to multiple devices like that. You create one SSH key for laptop, one SSH key for the desktop, and with UP it's exactly the same. The only difference it's basically public-private key. You have a private key on your laptop. You have another private key on your desktop. You have two private keys linked to with control and access to your UP. It's the same principle basically how it will work.
Thank you both. Our next question is about buyable NFTs. I think this one is referring to Fabian's presentation from Meetup number 1. So how is going the progress about buyable NFTs or to use universal profiles as its own marketplace, as I have heard it from Fabian? We don't have Fabian in here, unfortunately, but maybe.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably Fabian can give more insight about this, but I would just simply say that we were mainly focusing on the universal profile. The tokens absolutely were a priority, but not as much as universal profile. But the good thing about tokens is that they are extendable. So if you go to the token contract or like the token specification LSP7 or LSP8, you can see that it's mentioned that it's extendable. The same way a universal profile is extendable, a token is. And this is important for like tokens to allow future like use cases. And the rest of the question, how a universal profile can be its own marketplace. So as you know, a universal profile have the ability to store information. So you can technically store the addresses of the assets. And then if the assets have the ability to be bought from the address, like derived from the address of the token itself, this will help in a way to have like decentralized marketplaces. But this is still something in progress that we intend to work on, and probably in the near future we can give more information about this.
Thanks a lot, Yemen. Our next question from Discord: how do LSP support the creation and management of digital certificates and credentials on the blockchain?
I think it depends what is meant for digital certificate. Not sure I understood the question. Can you repeat the question, Bianca, again? Please.
Yes, let me find it again. Yes, how do LSP support the creation and management of digital certificates and credentials on the blockchain?
So maybe I can jump here. I don't think the question is clear enough, but like what I would say is that again, the universal profile have the ability to store images, not just images, has the ability to store anything. So you can store whatever you want. You can store like a link that provide like a certification of an image that it's authentic. You can store whatever you want. And related to the asset authentication, maybe this is something different, but I've just added here that since the universal profile can store some information, you can store the addresses of the asset that you issue. And then these assets also have the ability to store some information so they can reference you back. So in this way, you can have more like, you can say that it's certified in a way, the digital asset that you're interacting with, it's authentic. Yeah, that's what I can add here.
Thank you, Yaman. Our next question from YouTube: is there a factory contract example for creating universal profiles and key managers using a proxy?
Yes, there is a contract called the SP23 linked contract factory, and basically it enables you to, if you look in the IP repo, it basically enables you to specify basically two base contract implementation addresses, and basically you can deploy this way two contracts that are linked together, so the UP and the key manager, and these are both minimal proxies.
Can you hear me? I want to add something.
It's a bit noisy, but yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
If you look at the repo did for the workshop on the transaction layer, there is an example on how to deploy a universal profile with Manager to LSP23 factory.
Thank you, Magali. I'll point that resource. Okay, looks like we went through all the questions. We have a workshop coming up next Monday about tips from winners from BuildUP #1. So from the previous hackathon, we'll have some special guests. So if you're in need of inspiration for your hackathon projects, that's a great workshop to attend. And before closing this, I would like to thank to our guests for today and to our attendees from home, and ask you guys if you have some closing thoughts or recommendations for our hackers.
Yeah, I can go quickly. So, recommendation for the hacker is if they have any question, please let us know. We're always answering on the Discord, and probably focus on integrating the LSPs. This is the main thing. It's okay if you port some other protocol, and if it's existing and you just make it compatible with the LSPs, that would also be great. And just focus on using the extension, and yeah, just use LUKSO tools.
Yeah, my recommendation also would be to really focus on trying to build things that are, I mean, that you find fun to develop, that you enjoy. Because I think from what I remember from the previous hackathon, there were like some small projects that were very simple but very well made. So yeah, I would say try to really stick to like a very, not doing too much, but like a very simple stuff, but very well. And also to really look at the contract section in the doc. There is like a drop down called the ABI technical reference, and you will just find all the detail for interacting with each method of a contract, all the parameters, all the return values. So you have you have a lot of details. So like if you are not sure about how to interact with a contract from UDApp, I recommend really highly to look at this section, and anywhere in the docs for the tools, for the standards. Like there's a lot of content, and it's not sometimes always easy to find everything because it's always an ongoing process to improve documentation. But yeah, really to deep dive into the documentation, and if there are things that want some advice and you're not sure, yeah, as Yaman said, drop a message. But yeah, that will be my free suggestion.
And on my side, I would recommend to use the tools. So ERC75 Inspect, ERC75GS, the UP test the app in order to help yourself, and don't hesitate to ask questions.
Thank you all. You can find the links that Magali was referring to in our Discord. I would like to thank everyone for your questions, and to our guests for being available and responding to them. For those watching, just a short reminder that you can always put your questions in the hacker discussion channel on Discord, and we'll make our best to have it looked into promptly. We hope to see you next week for the upcoming workshops.